Welcome to HyTalk from Hypersonics. I'm your host, James Tenser. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Ricardo Belmar, a retail and CPG industry influencer. Ricardo helps retailers deliver omnichannel customer experiences that drive revenue through digital transformation. He leverages his 20 plus years of industry experience and media and analyst relationships working with retail tech providers, and most recently, headed global enterprise marketing for technology provider Infovista. And prior to that, he developed managed network and digital signage services for Hughes. Thanks for joining us today, Ricardo.
Glad to be here, Jamie.
Well, let's begin by talking a little bit about your definition of what luxury means in today's digital first, socially distanced marketplace. I imagine the definition is changing some.
Yeah, I think it's important to really look at different types of luxury brands and luxury retail. So the way I like to separate these out is to think of true high-end luxury brands versus what I'll call more aspirational but accessible luxury brands. So true luxury brands really rely on exclusivity and scarcity to derive part of their luxury standing in addition to cost. Obviously, true high-end luxury items are going to be pricier than their non-luxury counterparts. Whereas the aspirational luxury brands, there might be more brands like Coach or a Michael Kors. They're perceived as high quality and they're desirable through a lot of lifestyle marketing, but they're still accessible and within reach for, I would say, probably most consumers. Whereas those true luxury brands are out of reach for most consumers because of their cost. And that's really what defines for me that different types of luxury.
So is luxury evolving in its role, especially this year with so many norms out the window?
Yeah, I think maybe out of necessity, right? Many of these brands have had to adapt a little bit, certainly in that aspirational luxury category. So I like to think of this in terms of an overall shopper's buying journey. So we've got a pre-purchase phase, not the actual purchase phase, and then a post-purchase part of the relationship. And loyalty, for me, really, for luxury brands, both high-end and aspirational, in fact, has to do with developing a strong post-purchase relationship between the customer and the brand. And there's also going to be some opportunity to enhance the purchase phase. That in particular is true for those high-end luxury brand, because the purchase experience itself is part of the purchase overall, if you will. It's part of the product. And in both cases, the brand's goal, we want to say, is to really retain repeat customers that are also going to act as advocates of the brand. And I think that maybe in the sense of what's happened in the pandemic environment of 2020 has changed a little bit in terms of how brands execute on those points, because they haven't had as much of an opportunity of developing those relationships in the store in a face-to-face relationship.
So can you mention, please, some current standout loyalty and personalization practices that you find interesting in these categories: beauty, luxury, apparel?
Yeah, so I mean, just to name, one of my in the beauty category, I'll start with that. My favorite example I would put into that aspirational category is Ulta Beauty. Now, some might consider Ulta Beauty maybe as a little bit more of a big box type retailer, but what I like about them is that they have really mastered the ability to leverage their loyalty program. I believe it was in their 2018 financial reporting, they had about 90% of their sales were coming from loyalty program members. And that, for me, that's just an astronomical figure in terms of the success that their loyalty program has become. It means that essentially every customer that goes to Ulta and buys something is a member of their loyalty program, and they are advocates for that, and they repeat buy. So they've accomplished those goals. When you look at higher end areas, one advantage I believe of being in that high end luxury category is that you tend to build up a little bit of immunity to some of these environmentally changing activities. So even during the pandemic, these brands, the successful ones, have been able to shift the relationship to more of a digital one, in addition to that in-person human interaction that they're used to having with customers, and still retain that brand loyalty. Now, I think one perhaps advantage that they have there is that for many of those types of luxury items, certainly let's say with jewelry or, for example, high-end luxury cars, the purchase cycle is much longer. So it's not even a repeat customer is not going to buy something on Monday and then but Friday feel like they want to buy something else from them. And there's going to be some time elapsed there. Whereas something like in the beauty space where you have consumable items, your repeat buys are going to come with much higher frequency.
Very good. Very good. So higher frequency lend themselves perhaps to more automation. But it also changes perhaps our ideas about what makes a valuable customer, doesn't it?
That's true.
Traditionally, we would look at RFM, recency, frequency, monetary analysis, kind of a backward-looking metric. There's a lot of loyalty programs or CRM programs that are firmly rooted in that. Is that still relevant?
Well, I would argue that a lot of these historical based metrics are going to show some weak spots in 2021. And why do I say that? Well, because really 2020 is very much an anomaly. Whether we're looking at sales data, customer loyalty, everything got turned on its ear in that sense in 2020. So when we look at these historical numbers, it's one thing to look at my 2020 data and compare it to 2019 and to use that to derive some insight as to what impact the pandemic have on my sales. But let's look at it post-pandemic next year. What is it really going to mean to compare seasonal sales data, let's say in the holiday season in 2021 versus this year when I'm past this pandemic stage? Is that really a fair comparison? And what kind of insight am I going to derive from that? Or do I want to look over a longer period of time? So I'm really an advocate of looking at new metrics that have been around but maybe haven't been the focus. So for example, I'm a fan of looking at lifetime customer value. Why is that? Well, because if my goal from customer loyalty is to retain customers, get repeat customers, and have them be brand advocates, what really matters to me is how much are they buying from me over time. And the more they buy from me over time, the more I can call them a truly loyal or perhaps even an extremely loyal customer. And that aspect, I believe, actually has grown quite a bit in two factors in 2020. Customers have embraced new brands that they didn't know of before, in some cases out of necessity, but they've also strengthened their relationships with brands that did meet their needs during the pandemic. So I think in across two vectors, their loyalty has changed, but also been strengthened for many brands. So brands need to look at how do I continue to do that in a post-pandemic environment. And I think evaluating that lifetime customer value will really give them some insight. Now, that doesn't imply they may need new tools, for example, and new supplementary data sets to look at to come up with those insights.
Well, it's true. So this is an interesting shift, right? In the luxury world, as we've discussed in other conversations, very often the person who did the selling is the crux, right? The key.
Right.
Factor in deriving or creating an ongoing loyalty. In the socially distanced moment, this is obviously undermined or a lot less practical. How's that transference happening? For true luxury brands? I mean, is this is that model kind of changed forever?
I think it does change, maybe not as drastically as it was necessitated in 2020. I do think people will go back to stores. People are going to crave that human interaction that maybe they missed, especially in those luxury sales experiences. But that said, a lot of the new shopper habits that formed in 2020 are going to stick. And I believe they're going to stick because they resulted in a lot of convenience for consumers. And convenience in my mind is always going to be king in this environment, even for luxury. So how do luxury brands leverage that to their advantage? Well, for me, the equalizer here is using new technologies, whether it's new technologies that help deliver some automation into the personalization techniques, going beyond, let's say, just recommendation and engines that everyone has become accustomed to. When it comes to that one-to-one interaction that you just mentioned that your luxury brands really rely on, they need to continue to have that one-to-one interaction, but they need to do it in a digital way now. So those same sales associates that may have been face-to-face with a customer to deliver on that experience, they're now having to do it via digital means, which could be text messaging, emails, it could be an online chat, it could be even video streaming. There are a number of different ways that can be done now that we're seeing a surge in interest in that. So I think all of those things will continue. And luxury brands, I think, have the means and resources to leverage them and are going to adopt all of these different means to really strengthen that bond between the customer and the brand without being as reliant on the in-person aspect as they used to.
So for higher end, longer repurchase cycle products, perhaps there's an opportunity for more frequent interaction with those customers.
That's right.
By leveraging some of these tools. So with that in mind, so what else do you see sort of in the blue sky when you think of loyalty, personalization, shopper segmentation? What else do you think we can expect to change?
I really think the key here for these luxury brands is to really look at what life value are they going to bring to their customers when they're not in that purchase phase. So again, this is where if that customer's bought something from you, so now I'm in this post-purchase phase of their buying journey, I need to add a lot of life value to the customer. Now, depending on the product, that might be built around services. So what would, for example, a luxury car brand do to maintain that relationship? Well, they may want to add new service components to their relationship with the customer. It could be something which may sound simple as, say, picking up a car that needs to go in for service without asking the customer to bring it to a car dealership. And then deliver the car back to them when it's done. That adds convenience, which adds some sense of value in the everyday life of the customer. I like to point retailers, in this sense, to Apple as probably the best executor in deriving life value for their products. Apple, in a sense, where they don't even have what I would call a definable loyalty program, but they probably have the most loyal loyal group of customers of any retail brand out there. And they do that because they tell you up front, their products enhance their customers' lives. Even if people can argue it's not the best product in a category, it's that life value factor that derives the loyalty from their customers. And luxury brands should use that as a model. Now, how are they going to do that, right? If we're not able to do this personal interaction, well, even my luxury car example is a good one where that works with social distancing, right? If I'm picking up and delivering something, I don't have to have that direct up close contact. I can do it without. If I'm a luxury department store, I can do it by offering to help someone manage their wardrobe, right? Because I have insight based on sales data into what that customer already has. If I have an AI system that helps me be a little bit more predictive and I feed into it what upcoming merchandise is coming into the store, I can get more predictive and I can offer to the customer advance notice of things that are coming. Maybe I provide a reservation mechanism because I know my store associates know that this particular customer really likes that designer. So give them an opportunity to reserve it and lock it in before they ever come into the store or before they even visit your website. There are ways to deepen that relationship by adding that kind of convenience value to the customer.
Well, so that expands the activities very much for the retailer, doesn't it? So it adds quite a bit of, I'll call it intricacy as we shift to more personalized service offerings. It's a natural segue to, well, what's the role of artificial intelligence in all this? It seems to me to be almost a necessity when you try to pursue that or go down that path. Decisions made differently. So it's not only the shopper-facing experience, but also the decisions that the brands and retailers are making to best serve customers. So does that make sense to you? Do you see AI's role increasing in this context?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's really a huge opportunity in retail for artificial intelligence. One of my favorite examples I like to bring up, and I kind of hinted at a little bit just a minute ago with department stores, where we have a segment that's really struggling in retail today. I think there's no debating the fact that department stores are in a little bit of a crisis and trying to retain customers. But I actually, I'm always surprised that department stores aren't seizing an opportunity here. So if they were to take, with the help of an AI system, they should be able to look into their customer data and know from the history of what customers have bought and knowing what merchandise they're going to be bringing into the store, apply some stylistic approaches here and kind of supplement what a customer has in their closet. Offer to a customer some of that insight, so that rather than just being promotional and saying, here's a discount if you come into my store and buy these wonderful new things I have, they could now, using the AI system, be a little bit more prescriptive and say, since you have these 5 items, we're getting these 3 new things that would look absolutely wonderful with those 3, and they happen to be in brands that you already own and like. Would you like to come in and have a look at them? You might not even need to offer the discount to encourage someone to come look at it, because you've, again, added some of that life value, you've added convenience to do that. But without an AI system, I don't think that you can expect a department store to have human being staff, right, come up with the same level of insight. You need the technology there to supplement that.
Right. So in order to do that, you have to have the relevant information stored in,
right,
I guess what we arguably would call a customer data platform of some kind.
Right.
But it's not enough just to put it there. You also have to have a plan to access it and use it to support individual, in some cases, personalized decisions, and other
right.
cases, strategic decisions for the retailer. So what do you see? I mean, knowing what you know about the CDPs, what do you see about that connection? Is that strengthening now?
Yeah, I think CDP has become more and more important. I might even argue that this is becoming table stakes for any retailers. Certainly a weak spot today for retailers is that while they have a lot of customer data, what they lack are the necessary staff and tools to really analyze that data and come up with actionable insights. It's, you could kind of joke and say that by just having the data, well, it might as well be trivia, right? Because I can't do anything with it if I'm not handling and processing it in an intelligent way, including comparing it and looking at it in conjunction with other adjacent data sets. So for example, you could look at location data. Retailers, I believe, really should be seeking out some location data that they can map against their customer set to know what else are their customers doing. How can that be leveraged to deliver some enhanced value in the products that you're offering? You might want to add weather-based data, because if I have seasonal apparel, obviously weather is going to be an important factor in when people are going to want to buy those products. And you can add in that layer of data with your CDP and come up with some actionable approaches to your business and develop offers, especially in a loyalty program, right? Especially in a loyalty program. But of course, doing that, you need the right AI system. So retailers need to look at the solution providers that are out there. Examples that come to mind are companies like Hypersonics that have a really good extensible platform that makes it easier for retailers to do this without needing an army of data scientists to analyze the results and the output of these systems. And I think that's what retailers really need to look at over the next year to really enhance their customer relationship.
Very well. So you need access to data, the ability to frame the question, but clearly a way to manage the intricacy of this is essential. Right. And AI tool seems like a necessity in that framework. Well, so let's kind of wrap this up. When we're thinking about advanced methods of consumer commerce, especially in that luxury world, the ability to propagate loyalty or personalization programs. Any last thoughts for our listeners about that?
Yeah, I think that the final note I would offer for retailers really of any size is to truly embrace these technologies as a way not only to enhance the customer experience, both for their online engagements as well as in store, but also really to help them understand that customer relationship across the entire buyer journey. I think many retailers maybe focus on the pre-purchase phase because they're trying to get customers to engage. But once you have those loyal customers, you need to also focus on the purchase phase as well as the post-purchase relationship to retain them and to turn them into repeat customers. And I think this is where AI technologies can really help retailers become both predictive and prescriptive without having to rely on traditional discounting to encourage sales with those loyal customers. And that's what really is going to deepen their customer relationship and develop a customer from just being loyal to being extremely loyal and being an advocate of their brand, which of course is going to help them grow sales across the board. And again, I would say this is something that should be applicable to retailers of any size, frankly.
Very good. Well, that's outstanding. Ricardo, thank you so much. You have, I think, a terrific, clear and informed vision for the future of loyalty, personalization, and certainly how we apply AI to making that happen. I want viewers to know that they can seek Ricardo out on retailwire.com, where he's a regular commentator, or contact him through LinkedIn, or using his Twitter handle, which is @Ricardo_Belmar. Ricardo_Belmar. So this has been a Hypersonics HyTalk interview featuring Ricardo Belmar, the retail consumer goods industry influencer. I'm your host, James Tenser, and thank you for watching.